Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's Thursday, April 16th, and I'm so glad you're here. And I'm going to bring in our guest in just a minute, but I just want to say a few quick thoughts. Number one, just want to say thank you all so much for all the kind words I've been receiving about the recent interviews. We've had some great people on, and I've agreed with so many of you, your assessments that some people have just been amazing. We had Rob the other day sharing even a song with us, and some other people just doing amazing work and sharing beautiful, beautiful things. I am editing an interview this week for a former mega church pastor. I'll be getting that up on the channel shortly. Just great, great people sharing so many things that just make you think twice about a lot of things in life. So thank you for your support with all that. And also want to mention, if anybody is interested in doing their own interview, please feel free to reach out to me. All the ways to connect with me are beneath this video. Primarily, I prefer Facebook, so I can put a face to a name, but email will do. If anyone on that note is interested in meeting with me for peer-to-peer support, I'm not a therapist, but clinical stuff is for someone else. But if you're just looking for a peer to talk through the deconstruction, deconversion process, I am available for that. So reach out to me if you'd like. And I did want to mention, I'm going to be sending out a sign-up sheet very shortly for our poetry slam, which is going to be next Saturday, next Saturday the 25th, 6 p.m. Eastern. So if you have been writing poetry, or you haven't been, but it's been in your head, or you haven't been doing anything yet, and it's just you think you'd like to take a stab at it, please do. We would really like to hear your poetry, your song, to share what's on your heart. Can be anything, can be rhyming, can be free verse. We'd love to have you on the channel. It'll be like an open mic kind of night, and we'll bring people on and just share your poem for a couple minutes, and then tell us what it meant to you, and we'll go into the next person. If anyone can support the channel, all the ways to do that are beneath this video. Appreciate it so much. And with that being said, we're going to bring in our guest. Today, we're bringing, for the second time in the channel's history, Janine Harris. Janine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so good to see you. It's been far too long, but I'm so glad you're back. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. A little nervous, but I'm excited.
Good. Now, I am hearing, we were playing with the microphone before, I'm hearing that issue. So I'm going to take off the settings that I had and see if it clears up. Your audio was a little bit crackly there, but hopefully without my being without my adjustments, it'll clean up. But
how does it sound now?
It sounds better. I think we're good.
Okay.
I'm going to give a quick bio for Janine, and then we'll get started. Janine is the mother of three. She has been in the past a birth doula and a yoga instructor. She's taken a break for a little bit to study psychology, and she's also going to be eventually studying human sexuality. She lives on a farm, if that's correct, still from before, and is a homesteader, at least starting to. And she's also a YouTuber, Janine the Alchemist. I'll have the link for that beneath this video. So please do like and subscribe. And we have a lot of things, again, we talked about last time. So I'm going to pop the link in for our last interview that we did beneath this video. So please, when we're all done today, if you enjoy what you hear, and I'm pretty sure you will, please go check out our earlier interview. My technical skills at that point were much less, and my face, I used to do it where my face was like way up to the camera. I've changed a little bit. It's a little bit better now. But you know, the message shines through, and Janine did an awesome job sharing her heart on that one. We're going to summarize that in a little bit and then move on to some other topics. But Janine, before we get into the meat of it all today, could you just tell us more about yourself and some fun things and hobbies, and then we'll kick it off.
Fun things about myself. I'm just excited to be in school. I just started last fall. I had dropped out when I became more fundamentalist. So it's actually been just very emotional. When I took the last psychology class I took, I cried every day before class just because I was so happy, and hearing about basically everything we've talked about is stuff that they don't want you to talk about. So I just feel very giddy to be in school. That's kind of what I'm focused on, and my family's doing really good. I'm just I'm in a good spot. I'm just happy in general right now.
Now, last time we spoke, you were talking about maybe getting some animals. Did you happen to get any since we last spoke?
No, I was gonna get goats. I realized I needed to slow down. My kids are enough for now. I'll probably get a goat or a pig at some point, maybe another cat.
Nice.
But yeah,
I
slowed down on all that.
Yeah, I could imagine it'd be an awful lot to have kids and goats and chickens and all that, whatever, to take care of. It's a beautiful dream, but it is a lot of work. You need the kind of money to have a farmhand to help you or something.
Exactly.
Well, I'm just so glad you're here. I just want to remind everybody again, we do have the earlier interview, but when we talked through that, basically we were talking through in many ways, your background, and when we talked through like what it was that made you think twice about your worldview and eventually change. That's the bread and butter of my channel, obviously. But we're sort of here to talk a little bit about the aftermath of some of these things, where once you get out, some things change in terms of your experience, both in terms of how you interpret yourself and your past, but perhaps more importantly, or just as importantly, how other people around you treat you. So we're going to get into that in a few minutes. Do you mind though kicking us off for a few minutes for anyone that didn't see the earlier interview, or it's been a few years? Could you just summarize, in 5 or 10 minutes, what was that journey like, being a Christian and then getting out? And for the comments, everyone, I'm going to put up the short ones where it's just like 2 or 3 words. If it's any longer questions, I'll wait for those and pop those up later. But I do appreciate everybody being in the StreamYard today, in the comment section. Please pop all your questions and we'll definitely get to them before the end. But you all are awesome. But Janine, if you could just summarize for us, what was your journey through and out of Christianity like?
Like the beginning before the aftermath?
Yeah, like what I know. For example, I know you grew up like non-denominational, but sort of like Baptist, right? And you did a lot of missions work.
Yeah, so I'm from Southern California. I'm also from, I'm biracial. So I come from, on my father's side is Catholic, and on my mother's side, that's kind of where my fundamentalist side came from in the Calvinism. I personally grew up in a more sort of tolerant way. I have gay relatives on both sides of my family that the family already processed a lot by the time I was little and born. So I grew up in very much feeling like God's love, and I wasn't very judgmental, but I did grow up going to church. I was very active. I did everything. I did choir. I volunteered when I got older. I did the children's. I went on like a missions trip. I was really all in, way more into the theology when I was college age. And I also went to public school, and I would evangelize to people in my public school. So I was very happy being a Christian. I really enjoyed it. I felt God's presence. I had a lot of spiritual experiences. So when I stopped being a Christian, it actually surprised me, and that came from studying the Bible. People think I left because of church hurt, because a lot happened that I talked about in the other video. But that's not really why I left. I left because I was studying the Bible, but there were a lot of cracks and a lot of difficulties that I had with people. And because I was so honest and earnest, those inconsistencies were the things that were really difficult for me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's crazy that the way that those things pop up in your life, and especially when it sounded like from your first interview, which I listened to a second time this morning, you really were at a spot where you were all in. I mean, you were doing missions, you were doing ministry, you were all over the place. You were not a Christmas and Easter Christian. This meant the world to you. And you had a real relationship, so to speak, with that God. And it's so hard when you do face all those questions and suddenly have to deal with the cognitive dissonance so harshly. Did you remind us, though, for the audience, at what point in that process did you feel like it was time to start sharing your doubts with anybody else?
At what point? My doubts. So when I was a young adult.
Real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Janine. I'm hearing a bunch of crackling. Can anyone else in the comments confirm if they hear that or if it's just me? It may be just me. Maybe it's something on StreamYard as well. But can anyone confirm if they hear the crackling? And if you have, Janine, if you have anything you can do to adjust any wires, okay, Shell's saying, yep, she hears it too. Is there anything you have, any options you have to adjust anything?
Oh, it shouldn't be my mic. Do you still hear it?
I do, a little bit. It reminds me, I'm not an expert at what all could be happening, but it reminds me of like a cord that's maybe like loose or something. Is there anything at all that we can adjust?
Yeah.
Sorry about that, everybody. And just so you know, I'm going to put Janine on mute for a second. This is, in many ways, my fault because we didn't have time. I didn't allot time for us to check everything. I usually allow. We jump in the studio 20 minutes early. I was at school with my there's school lunches for my kids, and so I was with my daughter Abby, who's 9. I was just with her, and it was like I was debating whether to move the interview back, but it was one of those things where it was like right on the edge, and I thought, oh, we can probably do it. We can wing it. So this is my fault for not giving time for us to double check everything, but it was important for me to be with Abby and just to give her love and make sure she knows she's the center of my world. But anyway, Janine, I'm going to pull you back off of mute. Okay. What do you think? Anything you see we can adjust?
One moment.
Sure. No problem. So I'm going to put her mute again while she's working on some stuff. I just want to mention also for everyone, in terms of the YouTube channel, I've been noticing for myself that there's, I've been trying to push for the 3 to 4 videos a day. I've decided that I'm going to probably back off of that a little bit and aim for max of 3. The issue is, quantity versus quality. So I'm going to back off. I may be doing up to 3 videos a day, but and I'll bring this up in another live stream later. But just giving Janine a minute to look at her stuff. But I definitely I feel like I want to make sure that I'm bringing you quality content, not just a lot of content. So you may be like, I thought we were doing 3 or 4 a day. He hits 3 backs and stops. I've got a lot of stuff behind the scenes I'm also working on. It isn't like, well, if he hits 3, he goes and plays video games. It's like if I hit 3, I'm working on the others for the next day. But I don't want to get to the point where the quantity is more important than the quality. So anyway, Janine, what do you think?
I'm worried that I'm using it might have been my headphones.
Gotcha. It is still crackling, unfortunately.
So I don't think it's my mic.
Okay.
I don't think it's me. I was just worried about the echo.
Gotcha. Is there anything else you can try? I think it would be probably a little bit difficult to do the whole interview with the crackling. It's something that we can certainly reschedule, and I can just shift gears here.
I could unplug my speaker and then you could see how you like it.
Okay. Can you hear me okay? If you have earbuds or something, you can pop in. And while Janine's working on that, I'll just say this. I think all of you can probably relate to what we're going to be talking about. I mean, we're talking in many ways about gaslighting. It's interesting. I saw one of those videos, those videos where you watch them, they explain something historical. I was watching someone explain the word gaslighting just this morning. When I say morning, I mean like 3 a.m. as I often am. Can't sleep and play on your phone. But a video came up about gaslighting. And it's interesting. It was about this woman. Apparently the origin is this play or movie where this woman, she inherits like a house or something, and the aunt that died had like treasures up in the attic, and this man marries the woman with the goal of purely getting into the house so that he can be able to like go and check the attic for all these jewels. But he has to always convince her that he's not up there doing that, and so he sneaks out and climbs back in the attic window, and he makes up all kinds of excuses for everything where she thinks she hears things. And he's like, no, it's your imagination. And he just keeps on gaslighting her, as we now use it, to say you've made all this stuff up. He accuses her of lying because he plants his like pocket watch in her purse and accuses her of lying. Just makes all kinds of stuff up and just gaslights the hell out of her. And not till the very end do they realize through the actual lights, which are all in the same gas line, that when he starts to turn the lights on eventually up in the attic, it affects all the other lights in the house because they're all in the same gas line. So all of a sudden her light becomes dim because the gas is now not just going to her lights, it's going to the lights in the attic. And so she realizes, okay, this isn't my imagination. The lights are really dimming. And so it's a movie, I believe, called Gaslight or Gaslights or something like that. But it's amazing when you really think about it, how much Christians gaslight us when you're going through it. And obviously when you're, leaving and escaping and then reclaiming your identity, they're masters at this stuff, and it's important to bring it up. So we're going to talk through some of that today, but I'm going to bring Janine back on. Janine, what do you think? Whoops. Your mic is not connected. It says I can't unmute you. Your mic is not connected right now.
How's that?
That's fine. That sounds better. Yep.
I just unplugged my microphone.
Okay. And you can hear me though?
I can hear you. I just hope there's no echo from my computer.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. if there
Yeah.
does end up being one, because of like, if you're talking about my voice echoing through, if
Yeah.
that's the only issue, I can mute you whenever I speak and then just unmute myself. So I've done that once or twice before. But if you could, if you remember, I forget exactly where you left off, but if you could just pick it up wherever you want to, and we'll get through the story this way. But thank you everybody for your patience with us. Again, it's my fault. I waited to the last minute to get Janine in the studio. Anyway,
I
take us
didn't
away.
know how to.
I'm sorry, say it again.
I said, I'm sorry about my mic. I didn't know how to do it, but yeah.
You're good. So tell us again. You had left Christianity, and I was asking, I believe, about what was it like when you first felt like you could share that those questions, those doubts with anybody in your world?
So actually, you said, when did I notice the cracks? And it reminded me. So I actually didn't really intend to be a YouTuber. I like had a stand-up paddleboard video. Because I'm a yoga teacher, I became a yoga teacher when I was 19. But I was still a Christian. And of course, that was when I started getting a lot of backlash and a lot of people viewing me differently. And so that shocked me. So what happened was I had a friend, and when I first had my kids, one of my mommy friends sent me this video saying that mommy and me yoga was this horrible thing. And it was this video that wasn't yoga. And it was this woman like throwing her baby around, and it was very abusive and horrific looking. But I taught mommy and me yoga. So I was like, oh, that's not what it is. So because it was such a big argument, I guess, like she was very, like really coming at me. And I just felt like it was a misconception. And I, in a very nice way, just felt like, oh my gosh, like people don't get it. So I made a mommy and me video to say what it was. And that's actually, my channel became monetized because I made that one video. It was absolutely insane. And so that made everybody treat me differently. Like people were not so kind when I became a yoga teacher, but because it was so public and it was my lifestyle and I was talking about how it helped me, I had a lot of people who used to treat me nicely start acting like I was really demonic. And it was shocking because I was always an obedient child. I was always spoken about by adults like I was like a, trustworthy, and I babysat a lot. Adults thought I think they thought I was a good example, some of them. So it was very, like almost like a culture shock for me because I just didn't expect that because I believed I had a great relationship with God and I was just very non-judgmental and I thought that my heart was in the right place and there was nothing to worry about. I also think it's weird when people send you videos like that. Like sometimes they'll send you videos about why things are evil and, show you how something is demon possessing someone, but really it's just mental health. Really, it's all these other, I just always find that to be really, really strange and damaging. But that's actually where the cracks were, where it became a thing where I started speaking up a lot because I just had so much backlash for my lifestyle. And then people talking to me like I was a dishonest person all of a sudden.
That's crazy. What were the Christians by and large response when you tried to explain yourself and say, no, that's not what's happening here. There's good reasons. I've got rational things I'm thinking through. How did they respond when you first started to bring it up? And did you feel like there was anybody that was willing to like look at it at face value and say, yeah, you've got some good points here? Did they all kind of write you off quickly?
My friends who were like going to seminary and Christian colleges were the ones who were really, they started to like either distance themselves from me or tell me how I had to change. Or I had this grown man. I remember when I first became a yoga teacher, before I made the video, he like randomly came up to me and told me eventually I would stop being a yoga teacher if I was a Christian. It was just very like in my face. And I say culture shock because of the way I was raised. I was raised with a lot of tolerance. So I didn't expect people to behave that way toward me because of my genuine relationship with God. So, and I also think maybe I was just really prideful in this way where I just didn't think you had to be scared of demonic possession all the time if you're a Christian. I feel like I don't really understand people who are they're scared of music videos and stuff when it's like I thought you had the protection of Jesus. I thought you're covered in the blood. Like, why are you so scared? Um, and also, I I became more outspoken because I realized that it's more about a culture thing, like more about a westernized culture that sometimes Christians are in, more so than even what the Bible is and where it's from and what it's saying. So that's how I was able to compartmentalize their behavior. I would be like, they don't understand other cultures, and they don't understand like that what they see and what they think is right is really just Western culture, and it doesn't actually have to do with the Bible. So that's
Yeah.
how I was able to separate in my mind, and I became way more argumentative. Over time, I started to realize that people are racist and not even realizing they are when they call some things, especially music videos that they don't understand, are demonic. And how that actually affected me was I didn't really develop in my because I'm half black. I didn't really identify, or I identify with being black, but I didn't develop my understanding of that side of myself because of those social things. And so that was also something that caused me to critically think at the end of the day. It was like the gateway.
Am I coming through okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to put you on mute for a second. I think it is going to do a feedback loop. But I'll mute you in 1 second. But yeah, it seems like for so many of us, when you get to this point where you start to really share your story, they just can't take it. And I've said, my piece about this enough times that people know what I'm going to say. But there's just this sense of like, can't you just imagine that maybe there's another way to think through this? I love how you're pointing out the thing about the demonic activity. I got exposed to who was it? This Present Darkness and Piercing the Darkness. I forget the guy's name, but did you ever read those books? Frank Peretti. He's a Christian author who writes about, like, he makes up stories, and why there's issues going on in the church and the town. It's because if you really could see it, behind the scenes are all these there's all this demonic activity going on. And so what you really need is to be praying for God to, strengthen the angels and to conquer the demons. And you get a real sense that there's people that are truly living as if that's the case. And like, if you didn't pray today, that you just gave the demons the wide open berth to do whatever they want. And I think a lot of people do live in that realm. And I've heard of people even that can't, I know this is kind of funny, but I've heard of people that can't go to the thrift store because they're afraid that, something that they would buy came from a home where there was demonic activity. And by virtue of it now coming to your home, you're inviting that stuff in. And it's very, very weird. But when you look at the way that people are sort of, again, gaslighting you and just being obnoxious to you, did it feel like at times at all like people were not just disagreeing with you, but almost like they're misunderstanding on purpose, like getting a little bit closer and closer to that gaslighting concept, but where people just truly, it's not that they can't hear your concerns, it's that they won't hear them. Does that make sense?
That is my experience. So when I was a kid, I'm going to connect it back to the gaslighting, but stay with me. When I was a kid, there were these Mormons on my street. And back when I don't know if they still believe this, but in the Mormon church, you're not allowed to mix races. So their kids weren't allowed to play with me. And I have this memory where the mom was telling me I wasn't allowed to play on that side of the street. And it was really difficult for me because our street had so many activities and we had so many kids where everybody was included. But the Mormon side of the street, they would be like nice, but like disgustingly nice, and then they would be also really horrifically mean, and make these little facial expressions. Now I'm going to connect that to later when I left the church and after I did the interview with you. People were on purpose misunderstanding me also before, but I wasn't understanding that my existence is sometimes polarizing for people. And my opinions I naturally had and my personality, I never was connecting that I was polarizing and that people were disagreeing, because people have always been really nice to me, because it's not socially acceptable to just be mean to me because I'm Black, right? So people are actually overly nice to me because I'm Black. And also there's like that token thing where people want to be seen as helping you. That's my experience a lot. They want to be seen as, I'm like chronically the token friend because of the area that I live in. I have some really genuine friends, but it's hard to tell. Anyway, I realized that when I left the church more, because they started to be more like the Mormons to me. By seeing me as other, they were more open with how they really felt about me. And then when I looked back, I realized what those little facial expressions meant. Also, one thing is everybody acted like it was okay that I believe what I choose to believe. But then it's like they'd ask me if I needed help with the things that I was doing, like the parties or the things that I'm doing, but they would never accept help from me. So it's like I was trying to continue to build community with people, and everybody's really kind, but it like there's something about that was not clicking for me, and it was really psychologically torturous and difficult to always be someone where you have to be the one that they pity, because they can only hang out with you or be near you in the context of showing you Christ's love by helping you, but they don't really want a relationship with me. So that dissonance was really hard for me. And I quit, and I just estranged myself from not everybody. I have some nice, tolerant family, but I'm estranged from everyone who is fundamentalist. Especially after the video that I did with you, because people kept being kind, but there was always that on purpose misunderstanding you or acting like they care, but then withdrawing constantly and pushing me away or keeping me at arm's length and claiming that we're building community, but really they just want to help me, but not allow, like I have to be the problematic person that they pity that's beneath them. And one time, actually 3 times, I would be smiling just socially, and I just started crying. Like I just couldn't hold it together anymore, and I realized like that I couldn't do it anymore, and I just stopped.
I'm going to put you on mute here for a second while I talk again, just for the sake of the feedback loop, but it hurts. That hurts to hear it. I'm sure it hurts a lot to have gone through it. When I hear some of these stories, I wonder for some of the people, and I'm basically asking you this: did you ever get to the point where they're questioning you so much and so intensely and so patronizingly that you almost question yourself? Like, did it get to a point where it was so intense that you question whether or not you were seeing it correctly, or did you just feel like, they were like you knew you were on the right path the whole time? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I knew, I'm very sure of myself. I'm like that kind of person. I know what I think, but yeah, that did affect me. That was kind of how it was with yoga, where I just knew it wasn't evil. And I knew that there's nothing wrong with studying other cultures and like learning about other gods and goddesses. I knew there was nothing wrong with learning. So they would continuously do that though, making you not so sure of yourself. And that's why I'm saying eventually it was like very torturous. And it's also the reason why in the last video I didn't want to say why any verses. I didn't want to talk about any actual verses, and I'll say one today. I didn't want to do that because I didn't want people in my life to talk to me about it anymore. Because I did my research, I studied very thoroughly, and I believe I know what it says, and I know what it means, and I know what I think is okay. So, but they are constantly trying to incite that doubt in you, and they're not really listening. And what's crazy making is it almost felt like every interaction reset. So no matter how much they would get to know you, like I could know them for 14 years, it was almost like every conversation is like starting right back at square one. Like they don't understand my background, where I'm coming from. Like this just completely starting it over and then saying what they think. And so you're almost over explaining, or I still do. I still am working through that, over explaining all the time. But I forgot what I was going to say after that.
No worries. It seems like for a lot of us too that we get second guessed, but also a lot of patronization comes in. I remember one of the most interesting conversations I had was a former neighbor, just another peer that had kind of grown up near, but Christian family as well. And they end the conversation with simply the phrase, "I hope you find what you're looking for, Tim. I hope you find what you're looking for." And you kind of get that sense that you see me as a lost soul or a project, as opposed to someone to actually interact with on a rational basis. And like, how do you process it when someone, when these people have treated you basically, in a sense, probably in this similar way, where you're the project, you're the lost soul?
Oh my gosh. So I'm sorry that happened. That sucks. I hate that. They make you believe that your suffering is God, right? Like she's so unhappy now. Like look at how much suffering she's going through and all this, and I'm telling you my sob story, right? And they're like it's like she's unhappy. This is the result of leaving God. But it's not. My worst day as a Christian, sorry, my best day as a Christian is nothing in compared to my worst day now. Nothing. It's them. It's what they're doing. It's how they are reacting to me and how they're making me feel. It's they're pulling away and keeping you at arm's length and like pretending like they love you. And that is what's causing the pain. They're not listening to what you're saying, and they almost talk to you like they don't believe you. That was very shocking for me because I would be telling the truth and everyone's talking to you like you've got some secret evil agenda every time you talk to them. And also, Tim, after I talked to you, and that was like 3 years ago, I'd been a yoga teacher for like 10 years at that point, and I was in a great point in my career. And some Christians are more open to yoga than others. I had a relatively okay relationship with a lot of different people. It's just because of that, how I was made to feel. After our interview, I actually felt, and after I left my relationships with friends and some family, as a result of how they treated me after. Because also after, my husband and I we had a 10-year anniversary for our marriage. But when we got married, we were Christian. So we had a very different kind of ceremony where I had like a female officiant and we did like this fire ceremony. And it was just like very witchy and spiritual. And we showed that to everybody in our lives. After that, people weren't unkind, but it was clear that everything was different, and I was being pushed out and deprioritized in the community. And so when I did yoga, it was extremely painful for me. I couldn't do it for like months, and I just cried every time because that was a place where I went to take care of myself. That was special for me. That in the past I felt like I was close with God when I was a Christian when I did it. And it's just a very sacred, important place for me. It was almost like taken away from me because I have abandonment wounds from other things in my life. And it triggered my abandonment wounds to be abandoned like that from people who were my family. my church family.
Crazy stuff. It feels, I want to say a couple things, but it feels so ironic. And I know we said this in our last interview, but it's been a few years, so I'll say it again. It's so ironic that they look at paganism as so bad and so concerning, when the reality is Christianity is basically paganism. When you look at the Greco-Roman mystery cults, they are chock full of all these ways in which you're pretending to like take on the identity of the demigod by having this ceremonial meal where you eat the dead, demigod's body, and you drink their blood or something, and you have some kind of ceremonial washing, the water, your community, and you have like the mysteries that they reveal to you that they won't tell the other people who are not initiates. I mean, and you've got a God who wants to, mutilate little boys' genitals. Like, at what point do you not say to yourself, it isn't Christianity versus paganism, it's Christianity, which is paganism? And it's so insane that they can't see it. And I understand in a sense, because obviously I come from that background, but it's really, really sad. And it's disturbing that they look at things like witchcraft and they don't see that their Bible's full of that. I mean, there's the witch at Endor in the Bible. There's all kinds of issues. Moses does all kinds of, witchcrafty things in front of Pharaoh. And there's endless things like that. But, you end up as well with sort of the magical powers, where Peter, in the book of Acts, he can look at Ananias and Sapphira and just be like, you guys lied to me about how much money you gave. So bam, you're dead. And, Jesus, it talks about when Jesus was walking, they didn't even have to say, I believe. They would just touch the hem of his garment or something like that. Was it Jesus or Paul that they had that? But they just touched his garment and they were healed. So like, it's not even like faith in the person. It's just, I just physically tactilely touch you and I get your power. And obviously, when you look in depth at the mythology behind the Greco-Roman mystery cults and the other pantheons, you can clearly see that they have based the Jesus character on characters like Dionysius, which is clearly pagan. So many of those things are once you get into it, you're like, yeah, no, I can't unsee that. I can see it now. The fact that they would be upset at you because you're, to their minds, being pagan, it's number one, incredibly patronizing. Like, you can pursue whatever, spirituality you want to, but also the fact that they can't see that that's what they're in the same thing. They're just in a different version of it. And it's a parallel to how so many Christians are in these different denominations where, like, my denomination's right. No, mine is. No, mine is. Our Bible's right. No, it's King James. No. And everyone's fighting over something, even down to the color of the carpet. And that's like, it just, religion divides people so much, even to the point that you're dealing with almost the identical thing. You're dealing with variations on the theme of paganism. And to them, because it's not their particular brand of paganism, you're the bad guy. You're the bad guy. And it's just, it feels though, like, too, like, just to comment more on the general picture you're painting, it feels like there's no sense of genuine curiosity. This is what pissed off me about my deconversion, is there's no sense of genuine curiosity. They're just like interrogations. They're just like, I just need to interrogate you and ask you, sort of pin you to the wall, but I'm not actually really curious. Like, I don't want your answer, or I just want your answer long enough so I can shove my answer back in the equation and sort of bury yours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're not curious. They're not, and they are just interrogating you. And that was hard for me because of, I don't want to talk about it right now, but I talked about some really raw things in the last interview. And I was really going through it, like having the panic attacks and having the, like, how they're so dismissive of victims of sexual assault in general when it comes up on the news and stuff, being somebody who had to work through that, and just, they have no empathy. That it was just so hard to have them be that way, and then also they're always interrogating you. And I just, that's why I became more emboldened and starting to try to talk to them back. I don't argue with them anymore, but we talked a little bit about how I kind of became a mystic when I was a Christian, when the more I studied the Bible. And because I had studied like the Bhagavad Gita and like the Tao, I understood after a while when I read the Bible and I did an exegesis where I I paralleled like history, what was going on all over the world at the same time as the Bible stories. And I started to see how some of the stories are the same as in other myths that are older, and also how we misinterpret the meanings of things in the Bible when you don't understand Eastern ways of thinking. And so certain things became more obvious to me. And I wanted to tell you now, because I didn't want to say it last time, the day that I closed the Bible and stopped studying, I wasn't trying to not be a Christian. Like, I actually was so like all in. I was like getting away from what I felt like was more shallow and westernized culture. And I was trying to get back to like, I also became like so natural, like I in a way where I didn't really want to do. I still am like this. I don't really always go by modern beauty standards. I was trying to like really be more like pure to the core of what it really was. And so I'm reading the Joseph story, and and at that point I'm way more mystical. And I was getting into the meanings of the names of the brothers. And I know that those are also different parts of the psyche, is like, and sometimes, and I had already studied the different tribes, and that is also like that too, where it corresponds to parts of the body sometimes when you look into that, and also the disciples of Christ. So I'm reading the Joseph story, and I'm taking all these notes, and I'm feeling this is so deep, and I'm getting in there, and in one moment I realized it was fiction. Because the Joseph story, and nobody told me this, I've heard people say it since, but this specific thing, there were all kinds of things people told me that are contradictory or that are like this, but I never was open to listening. But I'm sitting there studying it, and I see that Jesus and Joseph are like the same thing. And it's like a newer version of the story. And I was like, it's fiction. And I was writing notes, and I just stopped. It was really, actually, I felt creeped out. That was the feeling I had.
Yeah, it is amazing when you see it. I had the same exact experience. That was unfortunately the only thing that got me out. I like to imagine that maybe in a different universe and existence I could have gotten out by some other issues, such as you just look at the psychopathic nature of Yahweh and think that's a problem. You know, I'm worshiping a psycho god. But my Calvinism kept me pretty tightly in check with that, unfortunately, and I didn't see it, and I, just couldn't see it for some reason. But um, once you see it, for me, the biggest thing was stuff like that, as well as astrotheology. I don't think we touched on that much in the last interview, but are you familiar with that term a little bit? Um, Astrotheology is basically the idea that there are the signs of the zodiac and different aspects of how we would look at the stars and interpret them based on the changing of the seasons, how you'd weave that into a story. And it's clearly woven into the Bible several times in the Old Testament, as well as the New, not several, many, but there's a lot of motifs, and that's very common. That's very common in all the mythologies. They often will do something that relates to the way the constellations move. But once you have a bit of a primer in your mind to see it, you see it more and more and more. And so, for example, when you go see Jesus talking about, telling his disciples to go look for the man carrying a water pitcher, he will show you the way to the upper room. He's talking about Aquarius. But it goes beyond that to me. Like, it really helped me to think through the work with Dr. Dennis MacDonald talking about the Greek epics, and how a lot of people would in that era would write stories that would mimic Homer's Odyssey and Euripides' Bacchae and things like that. And you can see it, like, once you see it and you have someone that knows those epics really well through and through, and he does, it's his life's work. He taught, and if you anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, Dr. Dennis MacDonald's books are on Amazon. He will literally, he'll give you the Greek epic on one side and then the Bible story on the other. And if you look at them, you're like, oh my gosh, it's the same story. It's just they changed a little bit here, tweaked it. There's one in particular, I think it's one of Paul's voyages, and you look at it and you're like, so in the Greek epic, the guy goes here, then here, then here, then here, then here, and there's a shipwreck that happens right here, and in this place he gets bit by a snake, and then you read Paul's journeys, and it's like the exact same cities in the same order, and the same stuff happens in the same places, and you're like, wait a second, that's freaky. And then you're getting a primer to say, I've got eyes to see now. And then you say, okay, well, maybe the words mean something. Maybe Golgotha has a second meaning. Maybe Arimathea has a second. Maybe Magdalene has a second meaning. Emmaus, in the Homer's Odyssey, that one of the slaves that recognized Odysseus by by his scars is this guy named Emmaus. And so when Jesus resurrects and he meets his disciples on the road and he reveals himself, and they don't recognize him at first, but then he shows them who he was, and then he leaves and he says, they say, weren't our hearts burning when he was explaining how he's the Messiah, from the Old Testament? And they keep going, but what road are they on? They're on the road to Emmaus. Plato, with his big work, the Bible back then, was the Timaeus. So when Jesus heals the blind man, what is he? Who's the blind man? It's the son of Timaeus. You just keep on seeing the Pythagoreanism as well with John 21, the 153 fish. You see the Pythagoreanism, the Greek epics. You see the Greco mystery cults. You see the numerology. You see the astrotheology, and eventually, it's like, it's not just that. They're clearly rewriting the Old Testament stories, but it's enough that you think, this isn't what we thought it was. This is not, this is not just a simple story of Jesus from a God. When you're starting to go through all these things, at some point though, the question is going to come up, I think, to the sort of the question that we picked as the title for this. You feel this need to share all that you've learned. You feel this need to say, no, I'm not off my rocker. I'm not crazy. You feel the need to sort of rescue them from their blindness or their fundamentalism. How do you get to a point where you say to yourself, while I'm glad to explain myself, if you really want to listen, at the same time, I'm going to honestly say, you guys have shunned me enough and mistreated me enough that I'm also going to say, I don't owe you an explanation. I don't have to explain myself.
Well, when I was going through that, I didn't realize I was deconstructing. So that was the phase where I was trying to talk to them like that, because I was defending meditation and I was using the Bible and I was seeing the astrology and these echoed stories. I was trying to find this. I believed at the time it meant that spirituality and your relationship with God is not what they thought. So I would try to talk to them back then when I still considered myself a Christian. I told my story because I was hurting and people were like treating me really badly in my life. So that's why I told you, that's why I came onto the channel, because I felt like I wanted to help other people who were still going through it. Now I don't care to, because I've spoken up enough a lot, and now I finally realized that they're not listening and they're not curious. So I only speak up for the benefit of other people. And the way that I came to this, though, was I actually worked with a somatic therapist to talk to you. She helped me through it. Obviously, I knew a lot about somatics as a yoga teacher and a doula, but then I got deeper into it after that, and integrating these practices into your body and releasing these things helped me see that I was in a stage of this urgency and like feeling in danger and feeling like I had to talk about it before I die. I felt like a desperation to tell my story because of how profound the pain was in my life and what I learned. I did shadow work though before that. Before I met you, I had gotten into shadow work. I did it secretly because it's seen as something that's very demonic. I was very interested in philosophy and Carl Jung. If you don't watch anything on my channel except one video, watch Shadow Work Part 2, The Mirror, The Mask, and Inner Child Healing. I don't think I'll ever make anything as good as that ever again in my life. It's not monetized because of copyright, but I use a lot of, it's like a video essay that has a lot of movie references that help to tell it better. But the entire process of shadow work was very important. I wouldn't stay in it for a long time. It's meant to be a part of a transitional period in your life, a reflective period. And that was really what helped me realize who I am and like orient myself in the world and understand why I was being viewed a certain way, why my pain was a certain way. I was really able to understand myself when I discovered shadow work. And it's not very easy. And one thing that's difficult with these people is they don't do shadow work because it scares them. So they're scared. Their shadows are running amok. They're just living in their shadow, and they are so cruel and judge so harshly because they're like a child that was never allowed to explore their feelings. They were never allowed to sit in their pain or have their pain acknowledged. So when they see someone else do it, it's like a child being like, they're not following the rules, and they attack. So now I see them like that, instead of getting so upset that they just are coming after me because nobody let them heal. I don't think I'm ever going to be like healed. I don't believe that we're ever just healed. I think it's a process, but it's like, it's a lot to deal with at first, because for a lot of us, we weren't allowed to figure out who we are or where our pain comes from or why we react a certain way and why certain things scare us and why behaviors happen, because you're not allowed to examine yourself deeply. So that's really what it was, doing shadow work. I wrote a book about it, like a 7-page ebook. I'm different now even than when I wrote the book. I was way more mystical and spiritual. So the language I use in it is like the divine. But it's still great because of the, like, I talk about the senses and I give you actual things that you could do. But there's a lot out there. Just do your research and find like a therapist like a somatic therapist. There's tons of resources that are free, but shadow work is that's why I'm more confident now. And also my husband told me, and he's much better than me than I am at this, but you don't have to over-explain. That's what I realized, is you don't have to always defend yourself. They always try to come at you, and they get in by making it personal, making it about like how you're doing, putting you in a place to where they find your weakness, where they find your like whatever sad is in your life, so that they can kind of give you the pitch. So you don't have to have these deep conversations like that with random people. You don't have to open up about what you're struggling with them. They don't really care. It's not really about you. So you can just say, this is what I think. Like, I believe in evolution, and you don't have to say anything else.
Yeah, good point. I think a lot of us feel like that's part of. A lot of us feel like that's part of the response that we get, and I love. Abraham Piper did a short on this a while ago. Did you ever see this one? The one I'm talking about with Abraham Piper. He did a short about the reality that this is part of the fact that they want us, even though we're not in a sense still Christians, they want us to think and act and react like Christians, and that everything in the Christian world is basically God is the authority, the Bible is the authority, and if you're going to deviate from it in any way, you better explain yourself. You better have a good reason for it. You better have a good reason, even within the Christian faiths, to explain why you believe this particular interpretation of a certain doctrine. Everything is, you have to give a reason for the hope that's in you. You have to give an apologetic response. And there, again, it's all forms of gaslighting. But I think there's a point that you're making here that I'm going to put it a little different way. But they're so emotionally committed to their conclusion, and people that are that committed, you can't clarify and educate them out of it. They're committed to it on such an emotional, profound level that it's not like you want to write them off, obviously, and it's not like you want to be patronizing to them. We want to be inviting to them, but there is a point at which we have to say, and I think this is important to say it this way: I'm not talking to the real person. I'm talking to the facade. I'm talking to the Christian shell. I'm talking to the mask, the persona, the person that is fully vested. That's not the real them. The real them is not available. The real them has been shielded off and blinded. They're in the depths of Plato's cave. They're not ready to step out. They're not ready to be unplugged in any way. You just can't get to them. You cannot free their minds yet. And you want to, and you certainly at least want to plant some seeds and hope that those seeds will sprout. But sort of to borrow from Jesus' parables, if the soil's not ready, the soil's not ready. And it's weird to think about like the question of what it will take for some people who are neck deep in it to finally wake up. And I've told this story before, so I'll keep it short, but I had this exact experience happen in my life with a friend of mine that I grew up with, a girl named Susan. Her interview is on my channel, but I was in kindergarten with her, and she was like one of my best friends. We were both, our dads were teachers there at the Christian school. We both memorized thousands of verses together for Bible quizzing. We were both on fire for the Lord, even in a Christian school. You can tell who's really on fire for God. And it was everything to us. And eventually, as we went separate ways and I got to adulthood and, live my life, somebody from the school that was a mutual friend reached out and said, "Hey, did you hear what happened to Susan?" I'm like, no, what? I thought it was like car accident kind of stuff. Like, she's not a Christian. I'm like, no, there's no way. Not Susan. I know it. And sure enough, she had become an atheist. And we just had an email exchange, several email exchanges. And she was just like, patriarchy this and, mythology that. And I was like, oh man, I'm guessing she went to some kind of liberal ass school that, she had a bunch of feminist teachers and now she's lost to this insanity. 10 years later from that email chain. Fortunately, I didn't blast or anything. I wasn't like, you're an idiot, burn in hell. I didn't think like that. I was a nice person, I think, even back then, in terms of just agree to disagree. But I didn't want to make anybody feel like a jackass for their faith. But I was like, I clearly disagree. But I wish you well. I left it on somewhat good terms, I think. 10 years later, I pull up the exact same email chain and I write to her out of the blue and I say, "Susan, I got to tell you something. I hope this is still your email address, but if it is, I need to tell you. I see now I'm an atheist too. It took me 10 years." But it makes you question, like, well, why did it take me 10 years? Why was I so unwilling to listen to anything she had to say, even though she was like a best friend from 20 years of my life? I couldn't see it. I could not. My eyes were simply blinded. And does that frustrate you that you never know? Like, some people might go to their deathbeds thinking this stuff is real and never entertain a single word you've got to say. And other people, any number of things could happen. Their marriage ends, their job ends, health scare, something. They just happen to flip onto a YouTube channel. It happens to be Matt Dillahunty or Seth Andrews or Christopher Hitchens by accident, and they let it play for 5 minutes, or Ricky Gervais or something, like, huh? And they keep listening, and all of a sudden, we all know how that goes. Your algorithm changes, and all of a sudden, you got atheist stuff popping in your YouTube algorithm. Do you ever think about like just the reality that it feels so hopeless and so hopeful at the same time? Like, it wouldn't take that much if they could have a little scope for the imagination that maybe this is mythology. But at the same time, if they never crack that door open just a little bit, it's going to stay, sealed shut.
Well, for me, you couldn't have, I believed a lot, you see what you want to see, right? So you could see that stuff and see and believe that it's evidence more for the Bible, even, evidence toward what you already, confirmation bias. It doesn't frustrate me so much. I just have to detach. What I get frustrated about is moments I thought were deep, people I thought who were getting to know me, people who I invested in for like 20 years. It was kind of meaningless. In reality, they weren't experiencing what I was experiencing in our relationships. Like that's what I struggle with, is that relationships were false or only there to hopefully bring me back to the faith, or to make them look good, like they're helping people by hanging out with me and being around me. That is the part that hurts. But I feel hopeful because after I did the talk, I had a lot of people talk to me from my old church who told me secretly that they agreed and that they were rooting for me and that they thought it was really great, and some of them are more open now. I did interviews with people. There was like this project I had wanted to do in college before, where I wanted to interview people talking about what was sacred to them and like kind of doing like a show and tell. I actually went through and I did it over the past couple of years. What was interesting is it was impossible to get a Christian to talk to me. I wasn't going to paint them in a bad light. I was just trying to get all perspectives of what sacred meant. I got one person, but she was more like astrology, like Mother Mary, kind of like me, kind of Christian. So, but no actual fundamentalist would talk to me, which I thought was interesting. And so that actually makes me feel better about where they're at, because it proves their behavior proves that they're I don't need them to be proud of me. If I was born in a Muslim family, my Muslim family wouldn't be proud of me. If I was a Christian, that's kind of how I think about it. Is I might be I'm like what am I, a secular humanist? I'm not sure if I'm an atheist. I think I'm still open to be proven wrong, so that makes me agnostic. I'm kind of animist, where I connect to God. I feel like I'm still connected in the same way as before, but I define it differently. So when I studied like African spirituality and somatics, I realized like the way that I'm feeling, this connected feeling, this purposeful feeling, I've chalked that up to life is intelligent, life is resilient, I am full of life. And so I still feel at one with God. I just think that I find that differently. So it's just I don't know. Like sometimes I'm disturbed, but sometimes I'm kind of okay with where they're at. And yeah, that's just how I categorize it now.
Well said. Well said. I'm going to put you on mute there for a second again. I think one of the things that is amazing about this is you do end up getting to a point where you say in your own head that my perspective and my words in my, not just that I'm going to say to other people, but my words in my own head about how I'm going to relate to these things, sort of your worldview about these interactions, it really shifts. And I think a lot of us want so much to basically say to everybody, please listen to what I've got to share. Please, I've got information that you need. Please understand me. Um, and, let me explain my reasons. Maybe if I say it better, you all understand. And you realize that because that's not the real issue and that's not going to change anything, that you change to the radiance you're talking about. You get steadier, and you're saying to yourself first, but then to them, I'm not going to debate my existence. Of course, number one, I'm not going to debate my stand. I have made choices that I believe make me the best version of me that I've ever been. I've never been this healthy. I've never been this well informed. I've never been this non-toxic. I've never been this willing to change and grow. And at the moment that I'm becoming my best version of myself, that's the moment that you attack me. Um, I'm not going to defend myself anymore. I'm not going to be available for conversations where all you do is invalidate me and my experience. I'm not going to let people gaslight me, and to say to them, you don't have to agree with me, but people do have to respect each other if they're going to be in a relationship. To say that to people, you do have to respect me if we're going to be in a relationship. And it's like you're not as much trying to raise your voice and proclaim, please listen to me anymore, but you're just kind of saying, I'm going to step away from those conversations and find a very solid ground for myself, and develop a thick skin. I mean, I think honestly, a lot of us really learn that lesson the hard way. But especially if you develop a platform, which you have, and you know that drill very much. You get the comments, you get the nasty comments all the time, and you have to block people and protect the community and so forth. But you get to a point first in your own head where you say, I'm going to create the solid ground and the safe place for myself, and then for my community. But then also, if anyone wants to join in, it's there's some boundaries here. And I think what the hardest part about this, and I'd love your feedback on this, is just realizing that you're going to lose some people in that, and some people are going to walk away, or at least treat you like you're a nobody. And you're certainly, you're not in the inner circle anymore, and it's a very lonely road. It's a very, very lonely road sometimes. And some of us bounce back. We get a new community of sorts. We get new people that are, just in love with our worldview and love what we're doing. They love what we stand for. But yet there's relationships that can't be repaired. I mean, I think about, my mom. My mom doesn't get in my face. My dad's already passed, but my mom doesn't get in my face about it. She's not judgmental. But I remember, like, about a year after I deconverted, I finally was like, Mom, you haven't said a word in a year. Can you tell me where we're at? What do you think about this? You haven't said anything to me in a year. And we were just sitting in a car outside of us. We'd gone to the dollar store or something, get something for the kids and for a party. And we're just sitting there about to drive home. And I didn't start the car. I'm like, Mom, before we drive home, can we please just have a brief conversation. We have danced around this for a year. I'm an atheist. Do you have anything to say to me?" And the tears welled up in her eyes, and she said, "I'm just," she said, I wish I were never born." Not me, but her. "I wish my mom, were never born." And I said, "Mom, why? Why do you wish you were never born?" She's like, "Because I'm culpable for bringing a child into this world that's going to burn in hell." And that's it. And we haven't really spoken about it since, in 5, 6 years. But like, that's the hard part about this, is you realize they can't see, even if they're not going to be mean. And my mom has not been mean at all. She's been very, very gracious. We barely talk about it. But at the same time, it's like, that they you've lost that relationship in a sense, despite how close you might have been before, and every attempt, even from both sides, for the respect. And that's why I feel like, people talk about religion and like, just let everybody believe what they want. And obviously everyone's going to believe what they want anyway. I'm not going to change that. I can't change it. And I'm not trying to impose my atheism on other people, but atheism to me is still, in my mind, it's a mind virus, because it literally destroys relationships that have no reason for any destruction and separation. Jesus himself says, "Unless you love me more than father, mother, brothers, sisters, houses, lands, you can't be my follower." He says, "I've come to bring a sword and to divide families." And it's exactly what's happening. He does divide families, just as he said he's come to do. And families that otherwise could have normal, healthy relationships where everyone is loving and everything, instead, it's like, if you don't believe in Jesus like me, then you're a bad guy. And many groups poison the well so badly that by the time you get to the point of sharing your perspective, they've already known for decades that anyone that even hints of that stuff is, like you said, demonic or heavily influenced by whatever, secularism, atheist perspectives, the evolution stuff, anything like that. Anything that's even not fundamentalist or patriarchal, they attack you for it. Like, you're on a slippery slope at best, if not much worse. And it's a lonely road. It's a really lonely road. How do you deal with, just realizing that some of those relationships will probably never get restored for the rest of your life, and yet we obviously still want to try and hope?
I'm not good at dealing with it. I'm a lonely person right now. When you're Black and you say you're an atheist, it's just not accepted culturally, because they think it means something that it doesn't, like to be godless, because of how deeply instinctual the culture is, that I feel closer to my roots. But yeah, there are people in my family that will never, they think that means that you're hopeless and in a really dark place if you say that you're atheist. But that's not what I would mean if I would say it. So it's really hard also for me to see Black Christians right now. I definitely scared people in my speech class. I wrote a speech about deconstructing and about Frederick Douglass. I kind of tied it together. And I saw one of the fundamentalist Christians in person one time, and she ran away and hoped I didn't see her. Like, I've never been a person that people are scared of. Also, people from my church, they'll see me and they'll hide. They're scared of what I have to say, but I feel better about it now because I'm not actually hurting anybody. I'm just saying the same thing. Like, I'm coming from the same place they are. Like, they're just saying what they think when they make their posts every day and post their Bible verses and tell you, like, say all these hateful things, like, just as if it's loving, like, in their stories and stuff. But then, like, if I just say a fact, or if I say what I've learned in a nice way, same level of conviction, it's bad. So what I figured out is just be yourself and follow what you're curious about. And that is what makes me more emboldened. So I sing whatever I want. I lost my voice completely, like my singing voice completely, when I was in the church, because like my throat chakra is all closed up. I would be like very hoarse. And also the songs that they have you sing, it's like all soprano. When I'm an alto, it's like, it's very limiting what they have you. I know there's better music now, but I'm saying at the time, the music was limiting and the people around me made me shrink. And then when I got away from it, I realized, oh, I can sing, but I have to sing loud. But being loud is bad in the church. So I started singing alternative music and being loud, and look at that, my voice came back and I'm feeling amazing, and I'm singing about like the types of songs I want to sing. I read the kind of books I want to read. I learn about what I want to learn, and I take the classes I want to take. And all of a sudden you're in a class saying what you think, and it might be polarizing, but they know who I am right now. They don't know who I was. So the people who are more like me are drawn to me. So now I have all these like new people that are pretty cool, and I start to see the fundamentalist people or religious judgmental people. I'm not as afraid of them, and I see them differently because they're kind of very limited in what they're allowed to explore and what they're allowed to think. And I see it in their faces, especially younger people, that they've literally just never heard some of the things I've said before. So it changed my perspective on, I no longer feel like it's bad to say what I think, because it really isn't. And it's also not new. I'm not the first person to say these things. It's not crazy at all. So just being myself more and showing up as myself more authentically is very helpful.
Yeah, well said. In terms of boundaries, I know boundaries can be a painful thing to think through and to initiate, especially if people aren't used to them. But it can also feel empowering. I mean, when you started creating boundaries, did it feel more like you were in a good spot, or did it feel, wrong? And it sort of, did you feel guilty standing up for yourself at all? Where maybe in church especially, women are, it's taught to be meek and mild and quiet and submissive and all that because of the patriarchy and misogyny. But to really reclaim your voice, not just your physical voice like you were just talking about, but your personhood, and to say, I'm going to stand firm. I mean, how did that feel at first? Did it take a while?
Yeah, because I am very agreeable and I'm very polite. I was raised to be really polite and make everybody comfortable, which I like being like that. It's hard for me because I used to be seen as just very nice to everyone, but now, I would walk into rooms and the whole room of people, if I went to like a Christian birthday party, one time they all stared at me. They all turned around, and it felt like 100 people. They all stared at me. So it was really shocking because I try to be really nice to everybody. So yeah, I mean, in the past, maybe if people used to, when I was more private, there was like this woman who gave a talk at the church that became controversial because she was a black woman. And she was a Christian, and she said, well, I'm black first. But she didn't mean she's like, I identify as black first. She was saying when she walks into rooms, people see that she's black before they see that she's a Christian. But the church ran with this story and made it this big thing to where she became controversial for saying that. And then everybody's like, what do you think, Janine? Because I'm black. So they asked me. I used to be like really mortified when being asked these polarizing questions, really mortified about like politics, and feeling like I always have to have an answer and I always have to speak for all black people all the time and know what I'm talking about. And I let all that go. Like, I'm an individual, and I just have to, it's not easy, but the more that you just are honest and realize I don't have to answer questions if I don't want to, and I can disengage. I also block people now. I have a lot of people blocked. You don't notice, but just having people pop up in your stories and on your feed, they are in your subconscious. And so what they think, what they stand for, how you know that they're judging you is in the back of your mind, even if you think that they're not. I would be like, I'm fine. It's more viewers. Who cares? Like, maybe it's helpful. But when I got rid of them and I stopped seeing them every day popping up, that was when I started to feel better doing yoga again. It was like I almost came back to who I am. And some people didn't even get to develop their personality as much as I did because they grew up in more oppressive households. But you can either start to get to know yourself or come back to yourself when you stop having all that noise in the back. You don't think it's affecting you, but it is. So that's how I deal. Oh, I'm just saying I just block them. That's how I deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that very much. I'm sorry for everybody. It's for anyone joining late. We had a little audio issue, so we whenever I speak up, I have to mute Janine for a minute, or we'll do a feedback loop. But um, I just wanted to say something. Sort of, I mean this tongue in cheek, but not really. So forgive me for being devil's advocate here. But when people say stuff like, you're dangerous, we can't talk to you. I know there's a part of us that wants to say, "Oh, we're not dangerous. We have some different opinions, but we're the same people. We're still moral. We're still loving." But at the same time, I will admit, now I'm being a little cheeky here, so forgive me, but I am kind of dangerous. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that in any way to disagree with what you said, because I agree with it totally. But there is a danger, and the danger, of course, is to their worldview and to their belief system, and especially the fact that when you're talking about teenagers or young kids, it, even if you don't speak up and explain yourself, like even if someone doesn't say, Janine, can you please tell me what's your worldview and why do you believe this or that or not believe this or that? Even if you never get to that juncture where you're just right up front and this is it. These are my reasons. Just the fact that you are not a Christian and you're doing just fine and you're thriving without Jesus, that itself is an issue. And I remember when I was growing up, I had this aunt who married this guy, and they were, he's not a Christian, he's an atheist. They moved away from our family, which we were all near Philadelphia. They moved away from Pennsylvania over to Colorado, Boulder, Colorado, the New Age capital of the world at that time. They may still be, I don't know, but New Age capital of the world. They go to Boulder, and they live their lives. And all this family, the Christian family in Pennsylvania, we barely ever see them, once every 2 or 3 years. But over the years, you hear stuff about their lives, what they're like. And I would hear about this man that she married, my Uncle Chuck. And I'd hear about, he was like one of the best dads in the world. He was at every single baseball game for the kids, everything they did. He was just like, they would praise him left and right. He was just like dad of the year. And he's an atheist. And it made me think, like, how can you like be without God and yet be better than all the people with God? And just the fact that he existed was, in a sense, an intrinsic threat, inherent threat to the system. And it didn't shake me up too much, obviously. I didn't go down that path too much. But the reality that you're basically saying my life and my spirituality, if you want to call it that, my existence, everything, my ability to thrive has nothing to do with your God. In fact, when I'm, in that worldview, my worldview feels like I can't thrive. I'm so unhappy. But now that I'm out, I'm doing better than ever. My best life ever is without your God, without your book. That is a bit of a threat. And that's, again, before you even speak up. But the other part that's a little more cheeky is the idea that once you get educated, you're not just like leaving because you don't, the church hurt you, so I'm leaving. I don't, whatever, it just sounds outdated, so I'm leaving. You've actually done the work. You've dug into the mythology, and I know you've done a lot of that. I've done a lot of that. We both arguably could probably keep going and learn more. But, we've learned enough to say, I can take apart their worldview. If we were talking directly to someone, I can take apart your worldview. I can actually make you look bad. I can make you squirm. And I think there's a part in which a sense in which they know that. Like, for example, when I've deconverted, almost nobody came and asked me to talk about it. And that hurt me in a sense, because I'm like, I know it's not real and it doesn't really matter. But if you think I'm going to hell, and was I not worth saving? You just like, he's a write-off. Oh, well, screw him. Have fun burning. But that's basically what's happening here. But at the same time, you get a little bit circumspect and realize they know that this is to them all about the gospel. You're a sinner who's bound to get punished for your sin eternally. There is a way, a savior. You must accept his free gift and his righteousness covering you. If you will go down that path, you could be saved. And it's all about the gospel. And the fact that I could explain it. I have done street preaching. I've preached in the church. I've preached to youth group. I have evangelized. I've done all of it. I've been to Bible college. I've been to mission school. I've lived in the jungle to do jungle translation or jungle evangelism. Like, I have done it and then some. There's nothing you can say to me that I can't say 100 times better. Not to be arrogant, I'm just saying I can say it. I was trying to be a pastor. I memorized thousands of verses. I know your story and your script better than you do. And eventually, I think they get a little bit squirmy. Like, you actually are dangerous. And I mean that again in a good sense. And I joke, halfway joke, that if I put 1,000 people in the kingdom, I want to take 100,000 back out. But there's a sense in which it's true, because I think this is poison and it does ruin our lives and our culture and our politics, our society. I do want to make a difference to undo it. And it's a weird thing, but you almost begin to take pride in a sense. Like it's grievous that you lose these relationships. It's so grievous. But you almost take pride in saying, you know what? If the cost of me being real, the cost of me being genuine, the cost of me leaving this planet better than I found it, of me having a voice where I can literally influence so many people for good and help us free minds, if the cost of that is that some of you are not willing to hear me out, you're not willing to respect my difference of opinion, you're not willing to hear where your own religion, your own book came from, like, I'm sorry, but if you're a teenager, I get it, you're stuck, you're just doing what mommy and daddy tell you. But if you're a grown ass adult, it's time to grow up. Paul says, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I thought as a child, whatever. But when I became an adult, I put away childish things. It's time to put away childish things. And Christianity is a childish part of our human evolutionary story. We have evolved past this stuff, and yet they're clinging to it. It's like you're living in such childish things. And I'm kind of proud of the fact that, in a sense, I'm dangerous. I like to joke, once you know how the sausage is made, then you can go outside that factory and say, "Excuse me, I know what you did. I know what you did. I know how to do it. I also know how to undo it." And that isn't a very healing thing, but it's a thing where you can, start to take some pride in yourself and say, "This is part of my new identity. My new identity is I am dangerous in a good sense from my perspective, and I do want to help people escape this enough that the people for whom I am a conduit to help them escape, it will be well worth it. These will be people that will essentially be more family to me than my own flesh and blood, and that it doesn't take away all the pain. And there are days, believe me, there are days. It's not like you just flip a switch and you say, "I don't care about you all," because that's what they do. They write you off. We're not writing them off in return, but there's a sense of taking back your power and your voice that it does mean something in this equation. Does that make sense?
Hell yeah, Tim. I like hearing that, actually. I get weird about being seen as dangerous because when I was homeschooling and was just kind of being myself, it was really hard to get into communities because they treat you like you're dangerous. So I personally get a little bit triggered when people react to me like that, because I'm just trying to live. I'm just trying to help my kids and go places without people being scared of me. But I like what you're saying about, yeah, I've thought about it. I sometimes feel like I can slice with what I say, because I know what I'm talking. Like I have a lot of restraint because I know how real I can get with people, and that sometimes it just blows up their life or whatever. So I don't know what to do with that yet. I'm 33. Like I'm still developing my comfort with that. I kind of think this is poetic though, because I was trying to have all this stuff and this study, and I was trying to make all these videos by the age of 33 because of Jesus, and do all this self-study. And like, it's funny to come out on the other side completely different than I thought I would be. But I definitely am dangerous. And I'm glad I am, now that you open that up, in the sense that I think people need to know what they're talking about when they're talking about literature and mythology. I think that it hurts society when you don't understand it. And because the church is so political, it affects everything. Like even little things like the 1997 Hercules movie, the cartoon, the Disney one. They changed that to make him more like how it could be digestible to Christian people. Like Hades was not evil in Greek mythology, but they had to make him more like Satan to make it more digestible to the Christian audience. And Christians think that they're persecuted and that they are the minority, and that they might be persecuted in other places, but not in the USA. And this is something I really want people to know and to really get, that they really are not. When I was a kid, I grew up in this area with a lot of celebrities, and I know what it means to be commercial, That's kind of why people don't get this, but I actively am myself on purpose. Like, I'm very authentic to myself on purpose, not because I don't know how to be commercial, but because I don't want to be, you know? And so people don't get that being Christian is commercial. I don't know if anyone caught, there was that documentary, If You're a Girl, Top Model documentary. In it, that just came out a couple months ago, in it, one of the producers said that they had loved one of the contestants so much because she was super Christian girl, super commercial. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. People need to understand that correlation of what they're doing with religion to control the people. And some things are good for order and society, but you need to be critical about what you believe. And you need to understand that you have a lot more control over your own life than you think that you do. And even though, I was left to my own devices and I was free to live the life I wanted, I was in a prison when I was a young adult. And I made a lot of decisions that were extremely life-altering, like choosing to drop out of college. And I love my kids and I'm glad I'm a mother. I would have had a lot of kids, but I chose to have 3 kids at 21. Like, I had my first kid at 21. I got married super young, which I wouldn't change it now, but it's like, this affects your whole life and it affects society. So that is something that's kind of why I can't shut up and why it's okay to be a little dangerous, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. I agree wholeheartedly. I think one of the people that I've seen the most recently about that is Erica, is it Kirk? She's like this, Christian lady with, I mean, certainly horrible what happened to her husband, but she's like she's become the Christian model now, and I think it's pretty crazy what they value and what they think of as good. It's amazing to me. I'm just going to step aside for 1 second and say this. It's amazing to me how your priorities and your perspective change as an atheist. The things that were so appealing and like, oh my gosh, that's the best thing ever. It literally like flips on its head, and the whole Christian culture looks so disgusting. It really does, especially when you realize that they're so addicted to psychologically abusing children. Um, in terms of I do want to make sure that we do a couple things here before we get too far to the 2-hour mark for a wrap up. But I do want to go into the comments in 1 second. But I wanted to ask you if you could, to when I get done reading a few comments, Janine, if you could, to tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel. It is different, and your alchemist is a little different word. Witchcraft is a different word. I don't go that route, obviously. I feel like I'm more of the Richard Dawkins kind of. I'm a materialist. I think spirituality is something that we think we feel, but we don't actually feel. I think it's a nothing. I think it's just math in our heads, which is kind of a nihilistic perspective, but it's cold. It's not very comforting, but I do think it's reality. But that's just me. Not everyone lands there. A lot of people land very differently. A lot of people, do spirituality differently. My aunt, the one I talked about that's in Boulder, she says, "Look, I go to church. My church is I walk my dogs in the Rocky Mountains. That's my church. That's our spirituality." Everybody's got a different version of it. But even though I don't think there is something, it feels to us like there's something. And I think either way, if you don't address that part of it, you feel like something in your life is missing. So I'm kind of curious what spirituality looks like to you, and sort of what alchemy means to you in your YouTube channel. So if you could in a second explain that. I feel like we've got a few people that have waited for a while for their comments, so I don't want to wait too long. Someone jump in here for a little bit. And Jean, for the sake of, again, the noise, the feedback loop, I'm going to keep you on mute, but if there's something you want to respond to, just make a motion or something. I'll bring you back on, and I'll mute myself. Mark says, church heart just awakens you to the issues and makes you question. You wise up quick when they're behaving badly, don't you? Yeah, for sure. Let's see here. Mark, talking about me being with my kiddos at lunch. Yep, we're fans of you prioritizing your kids. Thank you so much. I made some videos of my lunchtime with them because I haven't really done that before, so I'm going to do that. And I make cards for them every day. When we're in a schedule week on, week off, but on the week when they're not with me, I meet them in their school lobby with these cards I make every night. Just little teeny cards, but just say I love you, I'm proud of you. I'm going to show some of those. So it's a good thing to love on them. And I think hopefully this channel is really good at saying our priority in many ways is not just freeing our minds, it is freeing the next generation and loving on them so much and getting past so much of the garbage that they get so much garbage from Christianity. It's amazing. Dark Side, great to see you. My first live. Woohoo. Appreciate you being here so much, man. Great to see you here. Thank you so much, Susanna in Scotland. Love the live stream reviews. Appreciate you being here. Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate your encouragement. Many Christians demonize everything. Yeah, for sure. Shell says the demonized yoga. Well, yeah, meditation was a huge no-no in my fundamentalist church. It was letting the devil in. We were not allowed to meditate unless it was centered on God. Yeah. Susanna says that would have been very disconcerting to be suddenly seen by others just because they didn't agree with something. Too innocent. It's so shaming. Mark says it's so shaming when you suddenly go from being approved of to being considered demonized because you can't conform. I experienced that because of my autism. Yep. Jonathan again says a real shame. Yeah, they demonize so that they can keep, or at least keep trying to keep control and shaming people. Red finger red number one. Yeah. Tori, great to see you here. A society so twisted in its reasoning of changing trends in the culture that shouldn't really be followed. Yeah, I think I forget where we were talking about when you probably related that to something we said, but I'll bring that back up if I can remember. Jonathan says, okay, so we're talking about your audio issues. We should never conform to anyone. Yep, exactly. First, the Christians get brainwashed. Then their sad existence revolves around mainly brainwashing others without even realizing it. Yeah, that's the bread and butter. Get people in the kingdom and make sure everybody feels, like they got to be there, or else they go to hell. Religion is such a handy justification for racism. Yeah. Conformity, for the most part, makes you lose yourself in trying to fit in and not be free. Too many people try to get to, even though it doesn't really benefit anyone, or the ones who don't conform and get treated poorly. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. We try so hard to impress, our pastor, our missionary preacher, whatever, and then you find out that they're just, that maybe some of them are living a lie. They're not even who they've said they were, or you're still going to be crossed off. There's a big issue. It's funny going on right now with a guy that was one of my teachers at Bible college. He ended up going to a different school, became the president of the school, and they're just like, they're fighting all over the place. They forced him to resign, but everyone's like, what the hell? Why did he resign? We loved him. And it's like this whole big story. It's like drama upon drama of this nice guy and his family. And I mean, he's a Christian, but he's a lovely heart, lovely man, lovely family, and just Christians just shredding each other all over the place. It's just, Christianity is drama city. It really is. Took me a lifetime to catch on to that, maybe. Facial expressions equal microaggressions. Yeah, very, very often. The tokenism resonates with me. Thanks for touching on that. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I completely get that, because they only love with the love of the Lord. But I'm thankful to also go into critical thinking. It helps me get through hard things. Yeah. And Jonathan with some super chats. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for your super chats. Really appreciate your support. It means the world to me. It really does. Thank you so much. Tori says, I had a friend that only put God above everyone. Loved God the most over anyone. I loved him, but he didn't love himself, and it's hard to fight with that. It's a losing battle. Yeah, you realize that they really do love Jesus more than they love you. And that's one of the hardest parts, when you realize they are in love with a mythology-based literary character more than the people right in front of them, the flesh and blood. It's insane. It makes you want to scream. By the way, I've got a live stream coming up in a few weeks called something about let's teach ourselves how to scream. There's an appropriate place for screaming, and not necessarily in real life, but at least in your head. You got to scream this stuff out. Sometimes it hurts so much. Some people from the church operate like narcissists. Yeah, they sure do. The over-explaining is so relatable. Victims of narcissistic behavior tend to over-explain. Yeah, I would say I'm in that category, unfortunately. Great to see you, Trixie Mary. I've had Christians tell me that I'm not really happy. I only think I am. Yeah, for the last almost 30 years. Yeah, they can't imagine that you can be happy and thriving without Christ. It's so insane. Shell says, the mental abuse never stops. Even after you leave, then they think everything bad that happens to you must be because you abandoned God. Yes, I appreciate you pointing that out. That's a big one. Yeah, anything that happens, that's God giving you basically a spanking from heaven. Get back in the fold. Get back in the sheep pen and do it my way. I don't know if you all were told this, Shel, but when I was a Christian, we were told God breaks, or that shepherds would break the sheep's legs. Did you ever hear that? I don't know if that's remotely true to what shepherds actually do, but they would talk about if a sheep tended to stray, they would break its legs and then carry it around their neck. And if it took whatever, a month or two for the legs to heal, when they finally healed and could put the sheep back down and not carry it, the sheep could go on its own legs. The sheep was so used to being right next to the shepherd's voice that it would from that point on stay close. Pretty sadistic stuff, but it's amazing how they see it all. They have also said that they wish I would find what I'm hoping for. I did. I moved away. Nice. I love it. Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta. I'm not even gonna say it. I'm just gonna like express it with my image here. But sometimes you just gotta think of a different way to approach it. So anyway, yeah, and the shame. Yeah, they insisted that you're broken, that you need to just admit that you're broken, then act like you're broken. Yeah, it's nonstop. You're broken without Christ. My ex-friend also said I'm unhappy when I said I was happy, probably projection, but he thought that being religious is the way. But after I realized the things I've gone through have made me feel better. Yeah, even when it's obvious or not. He will also be shamed when you're not willing to give up your own life to take care of other people like your parents or siblings. It's all about obedience and suffering. Yes, we're pretty much the other. As soon as we don't play the game, the unconditional love goes away. Yeah, that's a great point. I appreciate you bringing that up, Mary. Absolutely. Yeah, there's no real unconditional love. They claim it, but it's not real. Looks like we got a couple more comments here, and Janine, I'll get back to you real shortly. I love seeing what other people say, so it's sort of nice to bring them in. In order to keep people in their slave place. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Very much. We are considered slaves of Christ, bond slaves of Christ. Tori, you go on being happy. Success is the best revenge. I like that. Thanks, Mary. I'm trying to move on. This was recent. Yeah, so much pain. A lot of people have reached out to me recently and telling me some very difficult stories, and my heart just breaks every day for us all. But it's important for us to encourage each other when we can. Yeah, it's pretty recent for me too. I just put my 87-year-old mother in a nursing home and moved away from my toxic Christian family. Life is beautiful. Best thing I ever did. I'm so sorry. Hard stuff. Next, are leaving Christianity. My son and his family are atheists. They encouraged me to come up and live with people who actually want me around, so I did. That's awesome. Sounds so nice to be free. Dark Side says, it blows my mind how Christians are so blind to their pagan leanings. Yeah. Yep. Crazy stuff. I stopped believing at 17. Wow. I'm jealous. Very nice. I wish I had done so. Would have been different. I always think to myself, though, I wouldn't do anything that would lead me away from any path where I wouldn't have my 4 beautiful children, but it still makes you think, just the what ifs of life. It's literally like escaping from prison, because that's what it is. Yep, prison for your mind. Thankfully, wasn't too attached nor strictly in the church. I tried to force myself to believe until I was 40, chronically depressed and ideations of harming myself. None of that happens anymore. Life has been exponentially better since I gave up Christianity. I love it. Yeah, it's exactly prison. The church I had been attending for many years completely shunned me and my son. I divorced my very Christian husband as well because he didn't want a non-believer wife. Yeah, unfortunately, I can echo that story, and it's a very painful thing. They want their pretend Jesus more than you, and you just sometimes got to shake your head and say it just sucks, but nothing you can do. It is like prison. Mark, in the UK, Christians are unable to be curious because they're afraid of everything. Yeah, absolutely. And they're deathly afraid, even if they can't express, they're deathly afraid of the possibility that their worldview is wrong. Yep, I was born into the prison. I managed to escape. That's so awesome. They're insisting that the warden wants me to come back because he really, really loves me. I like that. Yep, he loves us so much that he sends us to eternal punishment. Lila says, I understand about the abandonment wounds. It's so painful. Yeah, I think we're going to actually do a show on that at some point, just actually a whole topic for that. That alone could be expanded. One of the things I noticed is that Christians don't value empathy. They value obedience. Yeah, exactly. Bingo. It is abandonment. They are abandoning you because you're not conforming. The unconditional love stops as soon as you stop playing the game. They would give their lives for you if you were a Christian like them. Otherwise, go away. I don't think they would give their lives for anybody else either. It's all LARPing for them. Yeah. Correct. The love stops immediately once you leave, and this shows it was never real in the first place. Yeah, exactly. It's not real. It's all a game. The love bombing at the beginning, the encouragement and support in the middle, and then abandoning you to suffer the rest of your life with little to no encouragement and offers of punishment. See here. Yep, they're like narcissists. Yep. Almost done here. Got a few more. If you've been a Christian for more than 2 or 3 years and nobody's life transforms, yeah. Then you start to doubt. So then they start harassing you because you're not being faithful, and it gets worse from there. Always blaming you for why the God never shows up. Yeah, he's basically an absentee father. Yep, right on. They blame you for the God that they created never shows up, never answers any prayers because it's all fake. Yep. Mary says, people in multi-level marketing schemes are doing the same thing. Reports come out that the product they're selling poisons people. They will deny that it's anything other than beneficial. They have an emotional or vested interest in it being right. Truth has nothing to do with it. Yeah, well said. I'm very sure that the majority of adult Christians are just LARPing. It's all about performance and peer pressure. Yep, correct. And just see here, I think I'm catching up. It keeps scrolling down. You all had more comments than I thought here. They show up in chunks for me. I'm very sure that the majority of adult Christians are just LARPing. Yeah, performance and peer pressure. They police each other mercilessly and punish each other constantly. They show that they fear the collective punishment of God. It's really ironic. Lila, I think there's a lot of depth in the Bible stories. Yes, different characters do seem to represent different archetypes or types of our psyche. Yeah, when you look at it from the eyes of mythology, it's a fascinating book. It's just you got to get past the literalism, but once you get past it, there's some. I mean, you really come back to it, and it's like the way you would look at Greek epics. It's like, this is cool stuff. I don't believe it like personally, but this is great. If you can look at the Bible's mythology, it's amazing stuff. I find the Bible stories to be far more toxic than most mythology. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of toxicity, but that's all over Greek mythology anyway. I mean, there's awful stuff all over all Greek mythology. It just Greco-Roman mythology. I also don't find anything unique or original in them. Pretty much everything Jesus did, somebody else had already done better. Agreed. Robin Hood is far more positive than Jesus, Abraham, and Noah are a lot. Dark side, I'm glad she found her way out of Christianity. Yeah, absolutely. We're so glad Janine found her way out. They fear punishments, whether it be their peers or their made-up gods. They're manipulators, controlling, gaslighting, lying to people. Most of them, I believe, unbeknownst, doing so. Yeah, King Arthur was a better example. I'm definitely subscribing to Janine's channel. Thank you so much, Dark Side. If anyone that doesn't have it here, I did put it in the link and the comments. It's also in the description of this video. Let's see here. I want to go a little bit faster because we're taking a little longer than I thought for this. Let's see here. I started reading forbidden books when I was in high school. Tarot is still with me. I still have my crystals and all that good stuff. Okay. But I never believed in anything magic or magical as much as I really wanted to. It's really hard to undo a life of indoctrination. It's painful too. That's why I'm glad the community is here for us at this point, especially those of us who've been born in it since birth. Definitely get good therapy. Yes. Susanna in Scotland says, oh my God, I do over-explain. Yeah, I do as well. Yeah, it's definitely part of the trauma responses. If your therapist tries to tell you to keep going with your religion or God, get a new therapist. Yeah. And you can also go through the secular therapy project to most likely, I mean, probably still have to be careful, but the secular therapy project will get you in touch with people who've signed up officially as secular therapists. Yeah, Mary, you got my respect. We're not selling anything we're not selling anything anymore. We don't have to explain anything. Just say no thanks. I'm not buying today. Yeah. I was deconstructing in the 90s and didn't really understand what I was going through. The community is so helpful in this. I'm definitely glad to be part of it. They put blame on people so they can pressure them into Christianity, those vultures, those narcissists. Yeah. Dan Aquinas, he's the one who did this. Yeah, exactly. A few others in that list. But I too was in prison basically from birth, and later in life I could escape the prison. All because he wanted to get those Greeks in there and they didn't like the dietary restrictions or circumcision. They were having a really hard time reconciling the superstitious nonsense. Yeah, Aquinas. I'm going to keep moving here a little bit faster. Yep, mostly they are narcissistic. Let's see here. Susan's interview, which I've also put in the description of this video, was really good. Worth a watch, everyone. Let's see here. Chixie Mary again. Doing inner child work made me understand that throwing a temper tantrum was perfectly okay and definitely an option. Yeah. And I would say, just in terms of, the angry atheist phase that we all talk about, it's okay to be angry. They stole your life. If you're not angry about that, you're suppressing something. We should be a little bit angry, respectful, kind. We're not trying to get revenge, but still sad about what the loss. The loss is significant. Let's see here. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I'm sorry that I'm missing some, but we got to get to the wrap up here in a minute. The sad part is the people in prison don't realize they are the prisoners. Yeah, the Stockholm syndrome. We have the rose-colored glasses, and we become, in a sense, both the imprisoned and the prison guard. We imprison ourselves. We get to a point where it's very much a cycle that we're proud of. This greedy bitch came in and took an entire case of water and put it on her walker to leave with it. It sounds like there's some stories you could tell, Mary. Maybe we'll have to get you on here sometime to tell your story. You'd have some interesting rabbit trails to take us down. Let's see here. They basically think they can do no wrong. They're going to figure out otherwise. Well, they might not. And unfortunately, we just have to be like Pilate and wash our hands of it and say we tried our best. The fundamentalists are the most fragile. I agree. That's why they need high control religions. They need people to tell them what to do. Yeah. The confirmation bias plus ignoring the tons of clear contradictions are extreme in Christian circles. Yeah, they're trained to do that. Tilting Windmill, thank you so much. Please remember to smash the like button. I appreciate you reminding us. And yeah, they think of it as spiritual warfare. And let's see here. There is a lot of comments. Holy shit, you guys just wrote and wrote and wrote. This is great. I love it. I appreciate it so much. I just can't read them all. I'm sorry. I'm going to keep scrolling a little bit. As much as you might want to be with your parents at the end of their life, if their toxic ideology doesn't make that possible, that's not our fault. I'd agree. Yeah, that's a sad part of it. I've seen that. My mom faced that with her mom, who's now passed, but my grandma, it wasn't about Christianity versus atheism. It was more just what do you call it? The mental capacity eventually made her just mean to everybody. She literally, my grandma would just scream and bite people. So it's very sad. It's very sad that at the end of their lives, when you want to just give them the most love, that sometimes it's not possible for various reasons. Very, very sad. Host of the Demon. Thankfully, where I live, most people around me reject Christianity, so it's not that hard to find community. That's awesome. If you haven't already mentioned, I'd love to know where that is. I'm gonna guess Portland. I don't know where are all the churches closed. All the churches went down. I don't know where that will be, so I'd love to hear it. Dark Side says Janine is so right about being black and atheist. Yeah, I've heard that from other people too. That it's just like it's an anathema. You can't be an atheist as a black person in certain communities. Buy it, make a coffee shop that hosts black metal bands. You had to buy it, empty churches. One second. God always needs more money, but he loves us at the same time so much as to burn us forever. Yeah, he needs so much more money. God needs oxygen for its life forms for some reason, unless they're in heaven. Yeah. That's why Christians need someone to tell them their purpose in life. Yeah, Christians, that's one of the big things about how we end up putting our heads in the sand as Christians is we basically, if someone doesn't give us a purpose, we feel like there must be no purpose. And I've used the illustration before of if you had some homeless guy give you a bum check, a bad check, it's for $1 billion. And he says, you hold it in your drawer and your desk for a year and then cash it. I just want to bless you and your family. You're going to be billionaires. You hold on to it for a year. You go to the bank. You've thought that whole year, this is going to be so great. We're going to be so stinking rich. And you go to cash it. And then you realize it's fake. At that point, you feel like life is pretty sick. It's pretty sad. You're pretty depressed. You would not have been depressed if the liars had never come in and told you these lies. Christianity is one big blank check. It's one big fake check. If you didn't know about it, you would never say, "Oh, I have no purpose and meaning anymore because this check is can't be cashed." It's not how it works. Mark says, "I'm so grateful to Janine for sharing her unique experiences as a black person in deconversion. As an autistic person, I find there is some overlap and some obvious difference." Yeah. Amy says that terrifies them for sure. Successful atheists or agnostics. Yeah. Mary says, "I'm really glad Janine was able to be here to speak on this today. Every word she said is something I can relate to." That's awesome. And we're going to hear more from Janine in 1 second. No one was curious when I deconverted. They're threatened. Yeah. A lot of them don't. Hey, great to see you, resist depression. And I think for the sake of time, I'm just going to read 2 or 3 more and we're going to have to keep moving. I'm sorry for everybody. You wrote a lot of great stuff. I am going to go back to the replay later and read your comments. So thank you so much for everything. Mark says, people are afraid of atheists. People are afraid of those they consider as other, black, gay, autistic. We're all threatening to them. Yeah. Yeah. And certainly Trump and the MAGA system has made that almost, so much worse. Agree, Mark. Think one way only or be ostracized. Yeah. Christians think they're persecuted. Even white male Christians in leadership who have social privileges, they think they're persecuted. It's crazy. Yeah, if they can't be dominating the conversation socially, they think that they're persecuted. that one, the persecuted Christian, I bring out the violins. They have no idea what persecution is. It's okay to be a little dangerous. Agreed. Dark side, that card thing will stick with your kids for life, Tim. Keep doing that or something similar for as long as you can. Thank you so much. They're definitely worth it. They're great kids. And thank you so much, Jonathan, for a few more super chats, super stickers. I appreciate your support a lot. Amy Collins says the MLM and evangelical connection. Now that's worth an exploration. Yeah, for sure. I just watched a video on Myth Vision where the author says Jesus was real, but the myths around him were not. What do you think? I don't want to get off topic, but I am myself a mythicist. I don't think Jesus existed. I question even whether Paul existed, but we'll deal with that one another time. Let's see here. Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate that. I have finally caught up. So Janine, we're back to you. I've caught up enough to say, again, I'm sorry I skipped over some of them, but Janine, if you could please take us into your YouTube channel, Janine the Alchemist. What is alchemy? What does spirituality look like to you? And then also, if you could just sort of bring us to some wrap-up thoughts about the people going through this, where they're saying, man, oh man, I have been so gaslit by Christians around me. They're shunning me, perhaps. Maybe they won't even talk to me. Give a word of advice to wrap us up about for those people where it's just really, really a painful path.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for your supportive comments. That was cool to read that. I don't think Jesus existed, by the way. I think, well, maybe there was a guy, but I think he's a combination of different people and different gods. But alchemy is interesting. Me calling myself Janine the Alchemist, I was still really spiritual when I changed my name to that. Now I feel that I'm more integrated. I'm more like I said, I'm like an animist, or I'm probably an atheist but I am not like ignoring those feelings, those spiritual, because I had a lot of spiritual experiences throughout my life when I was a Christian and when I was more spiritual. Alchemy is like what came before chemistry. It's like an ancient way that people, it's very spiritual. It's like a metaphor for transformation, like the butterfly out of the cocoon. Like the lotus flower only blooms through the mud, like the diamond is forged through the fire. That's kind of what alchemy is. It's a lot deeper into it, but it's magic if you look into it. I don't believe in magic. I actually am I was always inspired by magic tricks like Penn and Teller. And that's kind of where I'm at now. That's why I keep the name, because I resonate with the message of alchemy, but I don't think I believe in magic. I think that we create magic, our mindset affects things, and my channel is interesting because I used it as an outlet to get to know myself and put out different messages in different parts of my life into the world. So in some of the videos, I'm really young, like I'm like 24 in some of them. I'm just having fun, but every single thing I've made was because I used to have like a desperation to get the things out into the world before I died. And I think that has to do with my Christianity and that urgency and feeling like I used to struggle with feeling like, am I doing something meaningful? Like I need to make my life worth something. I'm not in that anymore. So when I'm just saying that, if you check out my channel, there's a lot of different kinds of videos in it. And a lot of it was to understand myself and put out different things for different people. I really like my simple symbolism. I'm kind of amateur in those videos. Some of those blew up a lot because I talk about some artists in it and I talk about basic symbolism. So sometimes I rabbit trail really far into like symbols, maybe deeper than the artists are intending. And I think I did that because of also coming out of Christianity and being frustrated by people being so scared of certain symbols that everybody should know. Like universal symbolism, you should know how to read it. You should do your own research, like look things up, watch things actively. Don't be a passive watcher when you watch movies and TV. I made a video that was inspired by Tim, which is how we celebrate our holidays now or something like that. Because when we filmed our thing, it was on Easter last time. So I did a follow-up. A lot of the videos I make, like I'm a magician, like my manifesting, it's because I'm being directly defiant against my fundamentalist background, because you can't even say that stuff around those people. So my channel is all over the place. The shadow work series is like my work. There's only 4 videos in there and a couple extra details in there. I've got like a childhood healing journaling video somewhere in there, but that's great if you subscribe. I don't know how much longer I'm going to do it. I'm almost at 108 videos, which was what I originally was doing with my self-study, because it's a multiple of 9. It's a sacred number in yoga. So I don't even know if I'll keep making videos. I'll see what happens. But thank you for that support from that commenter. I just reached 10K, so I don't know what to do with that. I don't really know where I'm going with it. I'm changing. I'm always changing, and I believe we're like songbirds, you know. That's why I'm so open with my sexuality and it being okay to be sexual. I'm not perfect though. I still get super triggered by things, and I'm actually more conservatively dressed than I used to be. It's just, I think that we are animals and that you have to express yourself. You have to sing, scream like Tim's talking about, dance, and move your body and move things through and express all elements of who you are. And you become better in society. You don't become a worse person by being angry. Like, if you suppress your anger and you don't do it properly, that is when you become that Jekyll and Hyde bad situation. But if you allow yourself to really become who you are and express yourself, those things stop being so desperate. And that's kind of why I'm like blown away by my channel, because I'm like way more calm now. I don't even know what I'm doing with it anymore. I'm not like desperate. I feel very integrated. I feel very myself. I feel very grown up. It's because I was able to. So there's a lot of stuff there in my channel, just so you know. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, can you also maybe, for the sake of a wrap up, could you give a word to someone going through the hard times? Because a lot of people are hurting, and especially, we all have heard the horror stories of like JWs where you literally can't even talk to your family. But even when people talk to us, there's a lot of ways in which we can still feel the judgmentalism. What would you say to someone that's just really struggling with all that?
Yeah, I used to struggle with suicidal thoughts. I used to have a really hard time with it. The thing I do want to say, and when I say it's for a reason, I'm not saying because of God, but because you exist, I know that you deserve to be here. It's very hard to live, right? Like, we never know what sperm was going to, work in the egg. It's very hard to actually get to the place where you're alive here. You are allowed to take up space. I'm not trying to sound cheesy, but you literally are, and I know that because you are here. In an evolutionary sense, there is a place that you fit into. So that makes me feel better, because it makes you, I feel like psychologically they want you to stop existing, and they're like putting it out there at you, like they want you to disappear. And I believe that that is part of why I had those types of thoughts and struggle with that sometimes. But I know now that there is a reason I'm here, and I have figured that out through shadow work. And there is a place that when you develop yourself that you will fit into, and you will find people or a trade or work that you will belong in and that you'll fit into. So it's just there's so much to live for. There's so much beyond what you're leaving, and it hurts a lot. And I definitely have very emotional moments about it. But right now, all I see is the light. Like I don't see like darkness at all. All I see is possibility, and there is so much more here than there was back there. It just hurts right now, and it takes a long time, and you might get mad and sad and have dark times, but it really actually does get better with time. It really does. I was just saying I didn't believe people when they used to say that, but it really does.
Yeah, it really does. I agree 100%. I'm going to give you a chance in 1 second to give us any final words as well, but I just want to remind everybody before we do that to Please like and subscribe to Janine's channel. Just so you know, we are trying to get her to stay on YouTube forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, and to get to 300,000 subscribers, and to make the 108 into 1,008 videos. But I would vote for you in a heartbeat. I would say stay on YouTube if you can, but yeah, obviously you got to do what's right for you and for your family and your schedule. If you could tell us any final words that you have for us today, I'll wrap up in a second. And anyone joining late, I'm sorry, we had a little technical issue with the audio, so we're going back and forth. But if you have any final words, and then I'll wrap us up.
Okay, final words I think are, I don't care what your faith is or your religion. Like, my dad is very supportive. There are people who aren't being fake that have faith in religions and things. At first I was like, maybe it's everyone, but now that I've had some time and been open about where I'm at spiritually, there are some real people in my life, like on the Catholic side of my family. I know some people have Catholic trauma. My friend was telling me about that. My family really has been through a lot, and they chose love and support of each other. And they also value that I get to live in this country where you're allowed to believe in whatever you want or not believe. I even said I believe evolution. I shouldn't use the word believe, but like, you're allowed to not have belief. And so my message is just, it's really about how you treat people and what you do with your faith and who that makes you in society that matters. So I don't know. That's it, I guess. Does my point come across there?
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate it so much. That's awesome. And I'm sorry again. I know we usually have like a little back and forth here, but I'm gonna, for the sake of, again, the audio, we're gonna put Janine on mute. But Janine, thank you so much for doing this. This has been awesome, and I just want to encourage people. If you haven't gotten the picture, I think what we're saying today is, be proud of yourself. You don't owe anybody an explanation. Be proud of what you've been through. You've been through a hard journey. It's a hard thing, but everyone wants, demands you an explanation. Why aren't you in this political party? Why are you not a Christian? Why are you this? Why are you that? And you're welcome to explain it to people that when you want to, but you don't have to. And in some ways, this is about boundaries. I hope that's come through for anyone that's joining late. Be proud of how you've thought through this. Be proud of how you've transformed and navigated this. Think of what it took for you to go from the version of yourself that used to believe in all this to the version of yourself that you are now. You've been through a lot, an awful lot. And I just want to say we understand that. This is a community that a lot of people understand that process, how hard it is. You've been through a lot, but at the same time, don't feel the pressure to play their games. Don't feel the pressure. We don't want to be mean, but the reality is they're blind. They're blind to what they believe. They're blind to what they're doing. They're blind to where it came from. They're blind to how they're hurting you. And the reality is that when you get to a point where you escape and you say, I wish you could see it, but I know you can't. There are certain, paths that diverge. There are certain watershed moments, and unfortunately, some of those are very painful. But be proud of what you've been through, and give yourself the kindness to say, you know what, I have spoken unkindly to myself for decades because of the theology, the worm theology. They have spoken unkindly to me now that I'm leaving. All these things in which they have attacked you, you've attacked yourself. This is in many ways, unfortunately, a situation where you're going to have to learn self-love. You're going to have to at least learn to stop the self-contempt. You've been through so much, and give yourself a break. And I think you'll be a better person for it. It takes a while. It takes a while to figure out how to not play their games, because it's not just that we don't want to play their games. It's that we've been playing them and we've been advocating for those games for so long. It's a hard process. In many ways, it's not just beliefs that are changing, it's your worldview. And you can't see your worldview, let alone change it easily. It's hard. It's like the hidden roots that are below the surface. But yeah, I like this. We'll let Chixie Mary have the last word. Don't let the bastards win. Oh, Janine's going to come back in here a second.
So sorry, Tim. I want to say thank you for accepting me. I was scared to talk to you because I thought I had to be like fully atheist in the community, and I was afraid to talk. Thank you for being accepting of like the transition. I just wanted to say thank you. And thank you for encouraging my channel. That's really sweet.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, I didn't reach it. Yeah, we're so glad. Yeah, people don't have to be atheist. I think it's my big push for my channel is people that would come to a conclusion where they'd say something close to, I believe, Christianity is mythology and it's irrelevant to our lives. If someone's in that ballpark, we're probably pretty close. But yeah, I definitely think it's a good thing to say that we don't all need to land the same way. And we were, I think we could argue for sure pretty well that we were Christian fundamentalists, and a lot of us tend, unfortunately, to be atheist fundamentalists, and that's a good thing to resist. We're not looking to be as black and white anymore, including with what stop of the train we decide to get off of. For some people, pure atheism is a step too far, and I get it. And we have to respect each other. But the big thing is Christianity is mythology, and it is irrelevant to our lives, and we can be healthy and happy and amazing without it. So everyone, please check out Janine's channel. Janine, thank you so much for joining us again today. We will triple check our audio for the third time you come on, hopefully sooner rather than later. And we'll make sure that we can do this the other way. But thank you so much. Really great to see you again. And I appreciate you coming into some of our live streams and making comments or whatever. You're always welcome. You have the key to the city. So come join us again whenever you can. But thank you so much. And thanks everyone in the community. Thanks for being a part of our lives and letting us be a part of yours. And there's going to be another live stream tonight. If you can, what's the topic tonight? Tonight's topic, if it interests you, is it's actually, unfortunately, quite relevant to this topic. How do you cope with knowing that some of your loved ones will never escape? Very relevant. That was accidental. That's a God thing right there. That's a total God thing that he brought those two topics together. Praise the Lord. And we love you all. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.